welcome to this Ask the Expert from Manufacturing Management. My name is Paul Fanning and I'm editor of Manufacturing Management. And today's expert is Keith Tilley, CEO of Intoware. Hi Keith, I wonder if perhaps we could start by you introducing Intoware and telling everybody what it's about.
Yeah, sure, no problem at all. Intoware is a UK-based company. We specialise in software as a service for the digital workflows. It's all we focused on. It's what we've been designed to do, and particularly addressing the mobile market. So by that we mean people who need to use tablets, phones, or the wearable sets when there's a particular use case for hands-free operation, which can be a requirement within manufacturing. And we're there to drive efficiencies, health and safety, compliance, and a number of other benefits through the software. And I suppose if you had to sum it up very quickly, it's kind of replacing paper-based traditional processes with a workflow that enables you to gain so much more information and productivity out of that, as I'm sure we'll talk about. Okay, well that seems like a good segue to your product WorkfloPlus. Sure.
Maybe you could tell us a bit about what that is and what that can do for people.
Yeah, sure. WorkfloPlus, that's the name of the product. As I say, we specialize in that. And it really is a fairly simple idea, which is that when you are undertaking a task or activity, so in manufacturing, that could be an inspection, it could be an installation or repair, for example, then there usually is a set of processes you need to follow in order to be able to successfully complete that task. Traditionally, that would have been done either by up here in somebody's head or more likely down on a piece of paper. But that has its own problems, shall we say. A piece of paper can become more of just a checklist to say, hey, Paul did this, but it doesn't say when Paul did it. It actually doesn't say where Paul was when he did it. So therefore, it doesn't really convey what the requirements are of completing that task. So WorkfloPlus takes that task, allows you to schedule it, allows you to break it down into the individual components. It also enables you to add certain feeds into it. So for example, we have one of our clients, before you start the activity, you need to make sure that the person's read the health and safety. So it can come up and say, hey, here is a warning, you need to have read the health and safety, or you need to have the right PPE equipment. You can then branch off to and here's a little video to show you what we mean, or here's a little picture of what you need to have. And therefore allows you to make sure the person has followed that. It also gives you the confirmation step to say, has that person done it? Mm-hmm. You can also add in little extra features such as, well, can you take a photo or can you take a video? And that can be important for two reasons. One is to make sure the person's at the right place, but two, it can be that audit trail that you need to say, I know that person did that. That can be particularly true for health and safety, where you want to make sure that Keith or Paul did the right thing in the right order, so that if anything happens, you can say, well, everything was followed in the correct procedure. It then can take you through the task of what to do. So do this, do that. It allows you to reallocate some of that to somebody else. So say you get to a certain point and you say, that's me finished, I need to hand it over to somebody else, then you can pass it over to that person. Each of those individual steps are recorded, and that again is the difference between us and a checklist. So it can tell us how long it took people to do things. And that's very good when it comes to training or review or improvements. You can look at it and say, why is it taking Paul 10 minutes to do that and Keith half an hour? Clearly Keith hasn't had the training, or Paul's skipping something. So it enables you to be able to do that. And as I say, it also records where you're at when you do that. So that it gives you that audit check again from that possibility. So it allows you to complete through that. It also then at the end gives an instantaneous report of that data. So therefore you can have a report that is available to the person doing the work, but more importantly, it's available to head office. Or you can actually integrate it into some back office systems so that it sends an email to say, hey, Paul, Keith's finished that part of the task and here's the report for that, so that you can see what's going on. Or it may come to somebody else to be able to sign off to say that that piece of work's been concluded. So because it's instantaneous, then it means you could be really data informed in making your decisions as to what you need to be doing from a perspective. So again, it could give examples of, take a reading on this machine as you're maintaining it. If it's outside of this spec, then schedule some further maintenance for it because it needs a filter to replace or something like that. So particularly in manufacturing, it's quite often used for cleaning down machineries or in between runs. So we have a tyre manufacturer that sets up using the process to set up the machine for the particular run of tyres. At the end of that, they set up for another run of tyres. And again, it makes sure that everything is followed correctly. I think the other thing to add about WorkfloPlus is, well, there's two things actually. We do allow integrations into remote experts. So if something goes wrong, you can, for want of a better word, dial a friend, right? And you can break the workflow and you can go and dial instantaneously. So that, again, that could be the mobile or it could be a headset. So therefore you can do it hands-free, camera viewing down there. You can call the expert, which saves time because in olden days or even current days, sometimes it's the case I'll have to stop and I'll have to call the expert to come. Whereas now you don't need to. You can just dial back to base. Person can look at it and say, hey, you need to cut the yellow wire, not the red wire type approach. And then when you come back in, you're straight back in to that workflow that you're doing. So you can then conclude the workflow. And the other thing is we integrate into certain systems at the back. So if you require some data to be maybe imported first, so some kind of asset to be imported first, because this is the asset that you want to be doing the work on, then you can get that out of system. So we do that for one oil and gas company where they use IBM Maximo. We take data out of IBM Maximo, we create the workflows from there, and then the data that is collected is then put back in to the IBM Maximo. So we integrate into back office systems to allow that kind of efficiencies to happen. Things have progressed quite a bit. We now allow barcode reading, so you could put a barcode on the side of the machine. So when you go up there, you scan the barcode and it automatically pulls up the workflow you need for the day. As I say, you can schedule work, you could reschedule work, you can push things out. So it kind of drives that productivity that we talk about and increase the efficiency for the connected worker at the end. And that's what it's all about. It's making the connected worker more valuable to the company because they can do more things and take in more information. So I suppose that's a kind of potted history of workflow. It does, as I say, the ability to collect the data. Quite often people come to us and it's I just need to have this procedurized very clearly for people to do. And it starts off like that. As I say, one of the advantages of not being paper is if you find there's a problem in the process or a health and safety changes, you need to change something, you change it. And the next time the person goes in, it's the new procedure. It's not like I've got to print it, I've got to send it out, I've got to get the person to print it. It's there instantaneously. So it enables that kind of activity to happen really, really fast from that perspective. And that's particularly true if you're working in hostile environments as well, because our product can work online and offline. You could say, okay, and this happens on the oil rigs. It kind of like the best network connections are all in one particular place. So at the start of the day, Paul will go in there, he'll see his jobs, he'll download everything. He then goes out, does the work offline because it's all inside either the headset or the tablet. He then comes back in, gets reconnected to the network, the data gets sent through. And again, that's a simple efficiency drive for some people because we've had clients who in the past have been out, done their paper trail, come back in and had to key or scan the information in. There's none of that. You know, you can be 100% doing the inspections and not have to worry about going back to input for the reporting because it's done. It's done automatically from that perspective.
Okay. And in terms of the types of company this would work for, is there a sweet spot in terms of size of company, or is it scalable to?
It's scalable to anybody. You know, it's we kind of when I was an investor in the company first before I joined as CEO, and what I liked about it was in some respects it can work in any environment. Anybody who's using paper, you know, this will improve it. However, there are certain industries where this is particularly key. So we focus on certain industries. Manufacturing is one of the industries. Oil and gas is another one. Utilities, right, and construction infrastructure, because they are very process driven. And as I say, they need not just the pure process doing in the correct way, but they also need that health and safety and audit check to say it was done in there. I think one of the things that I found surprising, but maybe in hindsight I don't, quite often when we go to a new customer, we'll sit down at first and we have this very simple engage with us, design and deploy. It's very simple. So engage with us. What are you trying to achieve? Let's design it around it. And in that design, it can be quite interesting to get the people who are doing the work together with the kind of say supervisors. And we quite often have the case where, you know, we'll be looking at, well, here's the paper procedures that we need to be converted into digital workflows. And a good 90% of the time, people would look at the table and go, well, that actually isn't the way that we do it. And it's like, what do you mean? Or is it, well, the paper instruction comes, but when you're out there, that's not the way we do it, you know. And, well, but why didn't you change your paper instruction? Well, there's no need to. We know it. It's in our head, right? And that is kind of like, that's interesting because it enables the design, but it also means you can capture that from a point of view of saying, hey, if you're out there and the workflow isn't working, you can add that to the report and then we can change it and make it better. And that's particularly true in, you know, for people in manufacturing where there is a skill shortage of the older worker leaving, the newer worker coming in. Without that kind of digitalization, there isn't that knowledge to impart. Yeah. So if you do it like this, that's why it becomes a good, as I say, one of the things we probably didn't expect it to be used so much for is that training and education, because it kind of lends itself as to, hey, now, you know, Paul's the expert, he's helped design this, and now Keith's coming in and being trained, and Paul can watch him because you can do the over the shoulder stuff and make sure that he understands not just how to do it, but why they're doing it. So it becomes a good tool for that kind of training and education. And I think that's what we found even more than we expected, the richness of the data that can give to this data. I call it data informed. Lots of people say data led you know, but I don't think data leads you to it. It informs you to make a decision, right? Yeah. It's again, it's a case of, I've got all this data in front of me, right? But some human at the moment, maybe it'll change with AI, I don't know. Some human has to say, okay, with that data, then we should do this. And WorkfloPlus can extract such an amount of data that it can enable you to make better data-informed decisions. Again, one of our clients, maintenance of solar panels, they used it, and because it tracks timing and duration where people are, they were able to redesign the way that they scheduled the work to make it more efficient. Because what they found out afterwards, oh, hang on, we've got Fred going from here to here to here, and that Charlie goes from here to here. If we change Charlie to do that one and Fred to do that one, we can reduce the travel time down. So therefore, it gives that kind of information. That's not what people start off with. They start off with, I've got this business case. I need to make sure pharmaceutical company who uses us tablet cleaning the machine. You know, after a run of tablets, they have to clean the machine properly. Otherwise, the next run of tablets, if there was a contamination, they'd have to get rid of the whole thing. So they use us together with the headsets, actually, in order to make sure that the cleaning process is done correctly. And what it enabled them to do was enable them to reduce the time down that it took to clean it, and at the same time ensure that the right process was followed. So therefore, as we know in manufacturing, machines down, or the lines down, it's not making money. Yeah. So if you can reduce that down, then you basically make more money. And that's kind of some of the added benefits of driving the efficiencies. It's quite interesting when we talk with customers as to how maybe one thing was the nemesis behind what they were doing, and then all these other benefits come out as a result of it. Yeah, it surprises us sometimes, actually.
I mean, those, in terms of those benefits, I mean, obviously compliance is a huge issue in manufacturing. And I would assume that WorkfloPlus can be a major. You've touched on it already, but maybe if you could sort of talk a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I mean, compliance is, again, it's one of those things that's come out more and more as to what the benefits are. As I say, if you have a process that needs to be followed in a compliant way for health and safety, or for any other reason, actually, keep your ISO accreditations up or things like that, you can design the workflow in such a way to make sure that you are covering all angles of that. And as I say, you've got the audit proof on that, and because it's instantaneous, that report goes out. So I say we do have some clients who they break down the workflow that says, okay, at the end of this workflow, there's going to be this nice big report. But Keith only needs to see the health and safety. He's not per se interested in the results of it. He's interested in that particular part. So you can set up links to do zaps in this case, that send an email that connects that part of the workflow report to that person. So that person can, that whole report can be split down and say, okay, that needs to go to the production manager because he needs to see what the readings were on the meters and stuff like that. That needs to go to the health and safety to say, hey, the fan belt is still okay, or whatever it is that's required to that. So it can be very quickly done that. And also that can instigate the fact of, okay, there needs to be some follow-up to this, right? So again, one of our clients found that didn't start off like this. It was basically a maintenance procedure, but they recorded various readings on some of the equipment they were using. And they found out later that if the equipment had a reading that was in this range, it was likely it's going to fail in the next couple of months. So obviously a failure that happens where you have to do emergency maintenance is more costly than, okay, if we know it's going to fail, let's schedule a piece of maintenance before it does fail so that we can do that. So that, again, that's another benefit of doing this. That's not quite compliance, but I suppose you could be. It means you're complying with health and safety ahead, because if that was a safety feature, hey, this is going to break and therefore this machine will be dangerous, right? Then it enables you to say, I'm ahead of the game because I can tell in this information, because I can feed it back into other systems, that I need to do something ahead of time. So it becomes more of a preventative maintenance than a scheduled maintenance. And again, with WorkfloPlus, you could design it in such a way that says, actually, I'll send the job to do the replacement to the person who's got to do it, and I'll put it in their diary to do it a week on Friday, because you can, as I say, you can make a schedule for work so that as I come in the morning, I log on, here's my schedule of work I've got to do today, right? From that perspective.
So I mean, I think that obviously covers what WorkfloPlus does and where it is now. But perhaps looking to the future, what's the next step for Intoware and for WorkfloPlus?
Okay, well, apart from world domination, I think
that's a given.
That's a given. I think WorkfloPlus, first of all, we've just launched a web version of it so that people can use it also on desktops and various others. So that's enabled a new part of it. I think where we're going is, what we can see is link into some of the IoT types things that are happening, and maybe, as I say, a little bit of AI. So what I mean by that, at the moment, as I say, things are scheduled, right? So therefore, I'll schedule this work, or I'll go to that machine, I'll scan the barcode and I'll do this. I can see it whereby, I will be scheduled to do some work in a particular part of the factory, and I'll go and start doing what I've been told. And then I can see how an IoT would say, while you're here, this thing is getting close to needing a filter change. So therefore, I'm going to basically add another job to you, kind of automatically. So that's one of the areas we're looking at, is how do we work with the IoT information that comes? How do we absorb that information rather than necessarily get the person to have to type it in? Because again, at the moment, it's to take a reading, okay, take a reading. And then WorkfloPlus can say, oh, if it's between this, do this, this, and this. I can see how that could become more automated. And so the reading is taken in a kind of automated way. And certainly that's what we're looking at. I think also the use of wearables will get greater, right? Because the devices themselves, as with all technology, I can see the physical device getting more cost effective and more robust. I mean, we work particularly with one of the market leaders called RealWear, and they have a very good intrinsically safe device as well. So it's not just one that can be used in normal factories. It can be used in areas, in oil rigs and other places where you're not allowed to have the network connectivity or electrical stuff. And we can see that the use cases for that are starting to increase, right? As people realize, hang on a minute, again, it's an easy example is to use the oil rig. I really can't hold a tablet and climb up an oil rig. And you can't, in those cases, you can't use, people jump to virtual reality. You can't use virtual reality on an oil rig. You can't have a headset that is basically engulfs you, that you're not aware of your surroundings. We work with them because it's more like augmented or mixed reality. So you are aware of your surroundings, right? So that, I'm skinnying up the oil rig, I'm being told to do this, but if I hear a big wave coming behind me, I can hear it coming. I'm not ghosting that. And I think that can be important. VR's got its good uses for other areas, but the area that we're working, which is with the connected worker, to me, augmented reality is where you're going to get the efficiencies. So we can see ourselves working, to say, more on the IoT side, more with those kind of areas that touch on that. You know, our area works in a place that it's unlikely for a long time that some kind of robotics are going to take over from these connected workers. So therefore our job is actually to make the connected worker more valuable to their company by making them more efficient.
Yeah.
We also play, clearly we play to a green type of message as well, which is, hey, you don't need paper, you don't need to fly so many people around, you can do things more efficiently. So there is a play on that. But the main thing, I think, is driving that, as I say, productivity, efficiency, and that compliance, whether that's compliance for audit capabilities or health and safety. That's where it fits in, particularly in the manufacturing side.
Fantastic. Okay, I mean, that's been absolutely fascinating, Keith. So I'd just like to say thank you to you for joining us today, and thank you to our audience. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Paul. Have a great day.